I have a knowing of the kind of person I am. I know that I'm not perfect. I know that I screw up sometimes, but
Can I tell you all the ways that you're not perfect? I'm just kidding. Sorry.
I know that I'm not perfect. And like I said, it's not about not having accountability, but I also think that a little bit of this is like energy matching. Like, I'm not interested in spending time and energy on people that don't match my energy. That's something I used to also do, which, by the way, also had to do with proving my worthiness and proving my lovability, because I would be the chaser and I'd be the one that would try to make the relationships work, even though it wasn't equal, right?
I'm John Kim, a licensed therapist who used to be a miserable fuck before going on a hero's journey and turning expired relationships into revelations. I use my story to help others come with you instead of at you, unrehearsed on purpose, because self-help doesn't have to be polished or complicated, just honest.
Can we just take a beat for anyone who is sick and tired of making content? And also, I'm not someone who would say that because I love documenting my story. I've been doing it for so long, but I got to be honest. Fuck, man, I'm 52 and I'm tired. I'm just tired. The amount of content you have to make, and then the short form, the long form, the written word, and then also if you write books for a living, holy shit. All right, enough complaining. You know what I'm grateful for? And by the way, we usually do this in bed, but today we have to pick up our child. And listen, our child started school. Not only did she start school, she took the bus day one. And in the city, I gotta say, especially if you're going to public school, I don't think I would let our child take the bus unless that was what we thought was best for her. Like she needs to experience some grit and some.
I think it's hilarious that you think taking the bus is grit, because that's just not how I grew up.
Right. So I'm from LA and no one takes the bus in LA. You're from New York and everyone takes the public transportation. So public transportation in Los Angeles is only for the homeless. And so in Costa Rica, this giant tour bus rolls up. It's like a luxury tour bus. And it's so big that the kids can't even look out the windows. And she took that shit on day one. I can't believe that our child gets on the bus straight out of our house. And then, we do pick her up, but she's taking herself to school.
It's wild.
I'm not taking any questions today because I have a feeling this conversation will fill up this entire episode. Vanessa and I were talking about how as you get older, and you've heard this before, it's a t-shirt, it's a bumper sticker, that you give less fucks. And we're talking about this because I feel like Vanessa has been doing a lot of shedding. And part of it is, yes, our house burning down. Part of it is moving to a new country. But I think a big part of it is there's something about turning 40 that I think just gets you to change so much. So I wanted you to speak on that a little bit because I'm older than you. But there are so many millennials right now at your age experiencing what you're experiencing, plus ADHD, plus perimenopause, plus, all of this stuff. So
Plus. Yeah, part of an entrepreneurial founders member group club that a friend of mine started. And most of the women are around my age, maybe a little younger, maybe a little older. But we were having this conversation today about how you just hit this wall where you just stop giving a fuck. And I feel like, I don't know that they can be separated, because I think for me, the year that I turned 40 technically was also the same year. Well, no, it not technically was. The year that I turned 40 was also the same year that my house burned down. So it's hard to separate those two things out, but
wait, can you explain that? Because it doesn't mean that you don't care about the world or life, or you're suddenly don't have compassion and you're like, it doesn't mean that you're disengaging and that your heart is small.
No, and I actually just wrote a post about this. Like, it doesn't actually mean I don't care. What it means is I care differently. Meaning, I care more about the people that I'm putting my energy into. I care more, like, not strategic. What's the word I'm thinking of? Not mindful. Into the word, John. This is also selective. Sure, that's not the word I'm thinking of, but it's one of those. This is also what happens, y'all, with perimenopause.
Hey, there's a bus.
Yeah.
There's the tour bus. Okay.
Yeah. Mindful. Anyway, It's not that I don't care. It's that I care less about the things that I used to care about, which were fitting in, proving myself, proving my worthiness, proving my lovability, making people like me. All these things that I just have hit this wall around, like, you know what? I just do not have the time, the energy, the desire, the capacity, the bandwidth to do any of that shit anymore. I know who I am, and you either know who I am and see the good in me and see me for who I am, or you don't. And if you don't, like, I'm not going to try to explain it or justify or defend myself. I'm going to be accountable. Of course, we all do things like screw up and hurt feelings and all that stuff. But there's a difference between becoming accountable for something, apologizing, owning your shit, and then there's a point at which,
I just wanted to show them the horses.
oh, I was like, what's happening? There's a point at which you start owning much more than is yours to own. And I think that's like that line where I've just gone, yeah, but I'm not crossing that line anymore.
Well, let me ask you this, for anyone who can relate, how do you know what is yours to own and how do you know what is not, right? I think that's what's kind of confusing. That line also can be kind of a moving target, you know? I think it changes as we change, but how do you know what's yours to own? And how do you know that this is for me to let go? It's their stuff, not mine.
I don't know. I don't know if I can answer that for like everybody. I think, again, it's going to be an individual journey. But I think that for me, what it looks like is I can see that person's part. I'm always trying to put myself in somebody else's shoes and say, oh, I can see how that would feel this way or be perceived this way. And I can acknowledge that, you know, yeah, I'm sorry about that, or my bad, or that wasn't my intention. And if somebody takes it from there and then continues on or makes it more about, let's say, your character than about like this incident, or there's that feeling of like beating a dead horse, or there's that feeling of like, no matter what I say or do, it feels like you're not going to be happy with my answer or my apology or what I'm offering, right? Like those are some indicators, I think, for me personally, that I start to feel like, oh, this actually isn't about this incident. This isn't about me owning my part and growing from it and us getting deeper in our relationship. This is bigger than me. And this is actually something that I can't own because no matter what I do, it's not gonna rectify it or it's not gonna deepen the connection. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think there's a natural shedding we all generally go through. It's I find it mostly starting in our 40s. There's an evaluation, you know, there's an evaluation of our time, our energy, how we want to show up. We start to have non-negotiables that we want to hold now with two hands. You know, I feel like the first shift is when you have a child, right? If you are a child and you have a child, then that's different. You're just set on survival mode. But if you're an adult and you're self-reflective and you have a child, then your priorities shift basically overnight. And then I think the second wave of change comes like when you hit around 40, you know, and maybe for men it's 50, I don't know. I think women hit it sooner, but there is this like, I don't have time for that. I don't have time for that energy or that response, or that's not for me to own. That's their piece.
It's proving. I think what it is for me is any interaction that feels like in order for me to make this better, I have to prove something to you about myself, or I have to like prove something to you about, yeah, like who I am, or I have to, if there's something about the proving part that I'm just not interested in doing anymore.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely a part of it, right? Proving yourself, which is also, you know, kind of going back to my rebirth started at 35, and as I got inched toward 40, you know, that whole saying that I've repeated so much, not exchanging my truth for membership, that was me not wanting to prove myself anymore. Real quick, can I just insert something? We're at a gas station. This man right there, the blue shirt, he's someone that I take boxing classes with. And he said, hey, listen, you know that gas station on the way to that place? And I said, yeah. He goes, I own it with my partner and we fly in Krispy Kreme donuts. And I was like, what? And he goes, yeah. And also, if you want the best sushi here, that's what we get here. And it's funny because in Costa Rica, the best sushi is sold at a gas station, but he created a little mini mart. And this is the thing about Costa Rica is you got to figure out just through words or through through like
Word of mouth.
word of mouth and just the crevices where all the good spots is and where to get what. And so we are sitting outside a gas station because today's the day they deliver the Krispy Kreme donuts and the fresh sushi.
Hopefully John gets it and they're not sold out when you get in there.
Going back to this idea of shedding, I used to talk a lot about this Marty Bowen concept, and he created the concept of raising your differentiation of self, you know? And I think that's a part of this. He applied it to family systems, right? So a lot of times, you know, if you're the person in your family who, say, mom goes to because she doesn't want to, you know, face dad, right? Or if you're the emotional punching bag, or if you had to grow up fast, I call it being the kickstand, right? The refusal to be the kickstand raises your differentiation of self, right? You become more in your solid self instead of pseudo. And I think a lot of what Vanessa's talking about now is not having to prove herself anymore, not wanting to put that energy, gets her to default into her solid self.
Yeah, like I have a knowing of the kind of person I am. I know that I'm not perfect. I know that I screw up sometimes, but
Can I tell you all the ways that you're not perfect? I'm just kidding. Sorry.
I know that I'm not perfect. And like I said, it's not about not having accountability, but I also think that a little bit of this is like energy matching. Like I'm not interested in spending time and energy on people that don't match my energy. That's something I used to also do, which by the way, also had to do with proving my worthiness and proving my lovability, because I would be the chaser and I'd be the one that would try to make the relationships work, even though it wasn't equal, right? And all of that is starting to go away the more that I just become really aware of my worth. Like I know it in my bones and no one can take it from me.
Yeah, I think that's powerful. And I think when you start to put action behind that, which you are, that could change the trajectory of your life. Because we're not just talking about friendships, we're also talking about business. We're also talking about the projects you choose, right? And so, I mean, over time, just this alone, right? Like her idea that I'm only going to put energy into what feels honest to me, or I'm only going to meet people halfway. You know, that whole visual of water meets water at its own level. I'm going to practice that. That can change your life drastically. You could lose friends, you could change careers, you could like so much. It's a life rudder, and that it can change the direction of the ship.
Yeah, and I think we have to get to this place where, again, it's not that we don't care, but we have to get to this place of like, I care more about the relationship I have with myself than the relationship I have with anybody else.
What would be your motivation in holding on to that non-negotiable? So besides our daughter, what would be a motivation for you? And I'm going to talk about this in my men's group. I'm a big believer in the promise that we make to ourselves, and how most of us break those promises and they become holes in our self-worth piggy bank, right? And so when I was 35, I remember this one promise I made to myself. I said, I'm never going to be who I used to be. And that could be who I was yesterday. That could be who I was 10 years ago. But that promise would keep me always evolving and growing, right? What is a promise that, because I feel like that's what's emerging in you now these days, is having this kind of non-negotiable, I don't want to put my energy into this or that project or this person or this friendship. From there, I see a promise. And what is the promise to you?
Yeah, it's interesting you say, I don't want to be the person I was yesterday or before. I'm not going back there, because I actually feel like for me, it's reclaiming a little bit of reclaiming who I've always been. So who I am underneath the bad habits that were learned around needing to beg for my belonging. It's a return.
It's a connection to self. You know, one of the things that Vanessa and I have that are similar is in growing up, because I was very high strung and loud, and I had so many ideas, right? When you're an idea guy like me, as a kid, you're playing, you could be very disruptive because a lot of kids could be doing something. And of course, you've got 5,000 other ideas. You know, you want to turn your house into a haunted house, and you want to do this and make that, and let's make this into a ramp. And so there's this energy that was kind of forensic, phonetic. Forensics is something different. Yeah. And so people told me to calm down all the time. John, calm down, calm down. And I used to hate that. And I think for Vanessa, people said that you were too much, as in you need to turn yourself down, right? And I think this connection to self is it doesn't mean to be how you were when you were 12. It means to connect to the spirit of who you used to be before life happened, right?
Yeah, I mean, the too much wound and the not enough wound are essentially two sides of the same coin. So they're interchangeable, they're deeply connected, right? And so if I believe that I'm too much, I'm going to be constantly turning myself down as a way to prove again that I'm lovable. But that is also going to feed into my feeling of being not enough, because then I'm getting the positive reinforcement loop from people when I turn myself down. So clearly I'm not enough for people, right? And so, yeah, I think it is a returning to, we've got to return to who am I at my core? And do I have people in my life who actually value that and see me and know me and love me for who I am? Again, this is not, and I'm going to say this 1,000 times, this is not like well, this is just who I am, so take it or leave it. Like I've heard that excuse, in couples work and things like that. That's not what I'm saying
I
here.
mean, that's more of an ultimatum, which I feel like comes from pseudo self, comes from ego, comes from.
That's a defense, right? That feels like a defense.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is there are, of course, in a relationship, as a relational being, there are compromises I'm willing to make and there are conversations I'm willing to have. And again, like my part that I'm willing to own, once it starts to feel like it's slipping past my part and it's becoming, I need to change who I am or I need to be a different version of myself, then that's when it starts to be like, oh, this isn't actually about me.
This is all part of us starting over, and this topic is relatable even if you didn't lose your house or even if you didn't move to a new country. I think it's shedding, it's part of the human evolution. My question to you is, what comes up for you when we talk about this, right? This topic of not having to prove yourself or not exchanging truth for membership or connecting to the spirit of who you used to be. What would it look like in your life if you were to practice that? And how would that impact not just your relationships, but just where you spend your energy and your time? One of the things that has emerged from this non-negotiable isn't just an alignment with relationships, it's a project. And so one of the things that she's always wanted to do was create her own coaching company because of the lack of depth psychology in other coaching certification schools and
Grad schools or anywhere, available anywhere to anybody. It's always been so gate-kept.
so it's something she created recently, and cohort 2 is already on the way. It's a spectacular program, and again, things like that, right? And people can use the word manifestation. They come from somewhere. So it's not just an idea, there's a source. And I think sometimes even telling yourself, I'm done with proving myself to other people, that creates room for you to be like, oh, you know what? I've always wanted to create my own depth psychology coaching program, but I never had the courage to or whatnot. It leaves room for things like that. So that's why I'm saying that this thing is a life changer, and that it's not just about relationships. It's about what you decide to leave room for. This is where you plug your school.
We were just talking about making content. Yeah, I mean, cohort 2 starts September 14th. So if you're interested, you can go to my website and check that out. But if not, join the wait list and you'll hear about all the future cohorts, because the idea will be that we'll have 2 or 3 going on a year.
How many weeks is it?
It's 10 weeks right now. The idea is it's 10 weeks. It's very, it's a lot in 10 weeks, but I feel like people are really getting a lot out of it. So I hear, we did our cohort 1 and it was amazing, and it's turning into something really beautiful. So I hope all join me.
If you're interested in helping other people, don't want to go back to school and get your master's and do the 3,000 hours of becoming a therapist, and also you feel like coaching is great, but it's a little bit surfacey, this is the course to take because it's coaching through the lens of depth psychology. So you're going deeper what's underneath. They also do, in the class, they have this, what she calls a fishbowl, I call two-way mirror. And you're actually watching people coach in real time. I'm teaching in it, and she also has people who have actually been her mentors in their teaching as well. So
a lot of my mentors, yeah. So we're bringing in, we've got dreams and archetypes and imaginal therapy. We've got somebody who's focused on bringing in Eastern traditions into the work. We have a whole conversation around decolonizing therapy and what it looks like to return to more of the indigenous traditions. We've got a lot. It's a lot in 10 weeks, but it's really powerful.
Inner Compass, what's the website?
vanessabennett.com, and then you'll click on Inner Compass Academy.
Thank you for listening. Be well.